Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Copyright is a hot topic these days, especially as AI tools consume vast amounts of digital content. Now, a powerful new system from the U.S. Copyright Office is helping creators, researchers, and legal experts trace copyrighted works all the way back to 1898. Joining me to unpack the launch of the Copyright Public Record System is Sean Gallagher, a management and program analyst at the Copyright Office. Mr. Gallagher, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Terry. Glad to be here.
Let's just start with the background. What is the Copyright Public Record System and why is it important?
The Copyright Public Record System is the office's new modernized way to display information about copyright registrations and recordation or transfer of copyright ownership.
And why is it such a significant milestone for the Copyright Office?
Well, in the past, we had the previous system, our online public catalog, was around for a number of years, and we have been building this new system since 2019. Our first release was in the winter of 2020, and we wanted to move away from the older system, which was focused on library cataloging practices, and move more towards information that was more relevant to the copyright community, such as the copyright claimants or parties to agreements about copyright ownership.
What were some of the limitations of the old system? Why did you feel like you needed to put an update out?
Well, the old system, again, like I mentioned, didn't focus on copyright-specific information. We had to kind of shoehorn our information into that existing system. So this new Copyright Public Record System allows us to be more flexible in the information that we display and make searchable. And in addition, the Voyager system, which was our old public catalog, was being decommissioned by the library, which they announced, I believe, back in 2022. So with that decommissioning, it proved to be a perfect time to transition from the older public catalog to the new Copyright Public Record System.
It's sort of like a software company saying they're not going to support your version any longer, right?
Exactly.
Well, you mentioned that this new system was in a pilot since 2020. That's kind of a long development process. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in getting it ready to roll out live?
Well, I think with any system looking at copyright records, since we do have records that go back to 1898, the format and variety of information contained in those records has changed so much along with cataloging practices and policy rules at the Copyright Office. So figuring out how to bring all that information into a new system in a cohesive manner was one of our larger challenges. But we did that with the idea that we'd be basing it on the end user experience, trying to create a really cohesive product for people to search as part of the Copyright Office's effort to create an enterprise copyright system, which houses our public record, the registration system, and the recordation system, as well as licensing.
So maybe just refresh our memory on what kinds of things get copyrighted.
Sure. Well, copyright pertains to the fixed expression of creativity. So you'll see a lot of literary items, books, pamphlets, flyers, written materials. You can copyright sound recordings. You can copyright performing arts. Their choreography can be copyrighted. There's many, many things that can be copyrighted.
And so how does the new system improve the experience both for the artist or the originator and the user?
One of the things that we've made available is a much easier way to facet and filter your search results in the Copyright Public Record System. We're surfacing data that wasn't visible to the public before, so you can look at the type of form that the registration was submitted on, like I said, whether it's a sound recording, a text work, or a performing arts work. You can also filter further by lower item types, so you can look for books specifically. You can filter by pamphlets. You can filter by individual songs or collaborations. So we're taking a lot of information that we had in our previous system and making it surfaced for the public to be able to see.
I'm speaking with Sean Gallagher. He's a management and program analyst at the U.S. Copyright Office. So, Sean, I know user feedback played a big role in how you shaped CPRS and developed it finally. Could you share a little bit about how you sought that public input and what kind of feedback you got?
Sure. So we had a number of user experience sessions where we had our design team set up interactive sessions that guided users through potential scenarios for them to be able to search about copyright public records. I believe we had 4 or 5 public sessions as well as 3 or 4 internal staff sessions. And we gathered that feedback, brought it back to our developers, and used that information to tailor the experience, to kind of change the location of buttons, to change how the search algorithm worked, to try to focus it more on the experience that our end users were hoping to have.
And so what were some of the big changes that your design team made as a result of this public feedback?
One was the padding and the display of information. We know that people really like to scan through large amounts of information very quickly. So we provided the option to go from a grid or paragraph style view to a table view, which is slightly reminiscent of the old system for those folks that are a little adverse to change. You can still scroll through a long table. So we provided that option so people can quickly search through their results to find what they're looking for.
You mentioned that you have data that goes back to the 1800s. How do you see this changing the way that people interact with copyright data? What do they come to your database for? And then how do they use the data that they extract?
So the original public catalog that was online that we have replaced only had data going back to 1977. So beginning in 2020, we began releasing the registration application cards. So those are the cards that go back to 1898. And now we have over 3.9 million of those records available to end users. People can go check that out right now and either search or browse through those card catalog records. So we believe that making that record of American creativity available is going to help encourage people to create new works and bolster the community.
So does this have implications for people who are applying for copyright as well?
It allows people to search for pre-existing works. It allows people to determine ownership of copyrights, but it doesn't prevent anybody from creating new works.
I didn't mean preventing, but if they're creating a new one and applying for copyright, are these systems connected?
The new registration system, so the Enterprise Copyright System registration system, which is under development, is going to interface with the Copyright Public Record System. And you will see a very similar design language between that new system, the Copyright Public Record System, and the existing ECS recordation system. They're all built around the same principles with a user-centered focus and a common design language that is supposed to unify your entire experience with the Copyright Office.
So what are some of the lessons that the Copyright Office learned in building this new version and getting it out to the public?
I think the big lesson that we've learned is that we're choosing progress over perfection. I think if we waited for everything to be perfect, we wouldn't be able to make all these records available and accessible. So I think access to the public record and to this information is one of our main goals. We've also learned that, it's similar when you transition from one system to another. It's like moving from one place to another, right? You find all these old things and you begin to ask the stories about how they came to be and how they're going to fit into your new system and do your best to make that transition.
I love that. I imagine there are millions of stories as there are millions of records. You talked you implied that this is kind of an iterative development, choosing progress over perfection. What's next in terms of capacity or features?
Sure. So you'll see, I believe we have a copyright modernization page that talks about the continuous development effort that applies to everything across the enterprise copyright system. But specifically for our system, we would love to make bulk downloads available. We know that people like to take existing data and make their own interpretations, represent it in different ways, and do interesting and creative things with information. And so that's something that we'd like to release to the public in the near future.
And if you could have a word of advice for other agencies who have public-facing library sorts of tools like this, what advice would you have for them?
I would say build in time to hear from your constituents, whether they be congressional members, whether they be the public, whether there are advocacy groups that are looking for your information. Build in time to talk with them. They'll give you some great advice. And then, again, look for progress over perfection, because we really just want to make things better each time we go around.
That's great advice. Sean Gallagher is a management and program analyst at the U.S. Copyright Office. Thanks so much for sharing this new development with us.
Happy to be here, Terry. Thanks for having me.
We'll post this interview along with a link to the new CPRS at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Listen to the Federal Drive on your schedule. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.